Oh, we are live. Okay, we are live.
Yeah, all right. So we are live and we are ready to start the program. We're only waiting for Vicky Nanjappa to join us now. Uh, I think till Vicky joins us, what we'll do is we will start the program anyway. He knows what we are uh, planning to discuss today. Uh, Basically, it's a program that has been organized by Lopak's National Security Interest Group. Everybody, all of us, keep on talking about various issues
Vivek,
in
can
public
you put
life.
us on air?
Yeah, so various people, have been discussing various issues pertaining to public life. Some of us discuss RBI, some of us discuss cricket, some of us discuss the general politics. Lopak created a small little group with interest in national security. Now, within this sphere, what we find is that Pakistan continues to be rather the hottest topic here. We have a very long inimical relationship with Pakistan. Our largest woes, even though we would not like to engage with them or waste our time on Pakistan, but we find that the largest number of troubles that come to us is from Pakistan. We share a certain amount of history with Pakistan, and that is primarily the reason as that as a first topic we chose to uh, keep Pakistan as the primary topic. Now, many of us on social media have discussed various fault lines that exist within Pakistan and how India should be benefiting from those. So we thought, let's try and put all of those thoughts together here. There are various people who have taken interest in this particular subject. So we have with us Vicky Nanjappa. Everybody knows Vicky on Twitter. Vicky
Right.
uh, largely, writes for One India. Vicky, you have to correct me wherever I go wrong. Uh,
Definitely.
Vicky used to write for a very, very long time for Rediff, and uh, I believe he had a short stint with even Times Now.
2 months. Yeah.
2 months. Okay, I am no Arnav here, so we also have with us Anurag Dikshit. Uh, Anurag Dikshit is an IIT Bombay. He's actually an IT professional. He's currently running a fantastic app, which is for schools between parents and teachers. But in addition to that, he has varied interest in various subjects. So here he is going to be talking about his views with respect to Pakistan. We have with us Vikrant Kumar. Vikrant works with a very large IT firm in a very responsible position. He too continues to have this interest. Incidentally also has a defense background with his father, who was in an Air Force earlier. We have with us Alok Bhatt. Alok Bhatt is also a fairly popular character on Twitter. You can see him actively discussing various issues, very wide-ranging issues, from agricultural aspects to the financial issues to the national security. And just the way our national security advisor, Rajit Doval, and the current army chief, General Rawat, Alok Bhatt also happens to be a Gadwali. It's just incidental, but I thought, I'll just pass this remark here. The format of the program is we have divided the entire subject into 4 parts. At the end of every part, we will try and take the viewers' questions. The viewers can mark their questions with a hashtag. The hashtag is hashtag Pak fault lines. Yeah, PAKFAULTLINES. So hashtag Pak fault lines. If you're writing questions to that, We will try and take up those questions at the end of each session. Now, we've tried to divide this program into two parts. So part one is what we are going to do today. Part two, the speakers will agree upon a date today at the end of the program and fix a fresh date for taking up the remainder part. Now, the four parts are, we're going to discuss Pakistan since its inception, because that's where we think is the birth of the fault lines. We are going to be discussing the challenges that Pakistan faces as a failed state, because a lot that we suffer in India from Pakistan is primarily because it's a failed state. We will be discussing in part two, which is any other date, the effect on the nation, that is effect on Pakistan of being a failed state, and we are going to be discussing the implications for India, which is the second part of the overall topic. The first session will last for about 15 minutes, and thereafter we will have a 10-minute Q&A session if there are any questions, or we'll proceed to part two. So, throwing the house open, let us say, discussing and giving everybody a little summation of what Pakistan has been since its inception. I think I would request Anurag Dikshit to open the house with his views on what he thinks Pakistan has been since its inception.
So, thanks, Piyush Bhai. But before, I would like to start with that whole concept of Pakistan, and we can go back into how it was formed, who were the forces behind all that. But I would kind of skip it and talk about Pakistan from 1947 till say 1972 very quickly, and compare it with India. So India, both of us, like Pakistan, in fact, got independence a day ahead of us. We we became a republic in 1950. Pakistan could not get a formal constitution till 1956. And constitution is one thing. I came across a very interesting fact, in fact, today only, that they didn't even have a national anthem till 1954. When Sukarno visited, he was the first head of state in 1948. They didn't have anything, and before Shah of Iran came, they kind of figured out a tune, and then they got Hafiz Jalandhari to write it, and for whatever Urdu happens to be their national language, but their entire national anthem, except for one word, is in Persian. So why is it so? Because Pakistan has always been in this schizophrenia right from its inception till now. That what is its identity? So when it was founded, there were guys like Jinnah who had basically certain at least in terms of governance and statehood, certain secular tenets. But there were also people like Maulana Madudi who basically had their own agenda of Islam, and I think that is one reason why they could not basically come up with constitution. The first constitution came in 1956. It only lasted for 2 years. Then again, Ayub Khan became president. He brought another constitution, which was really surreal. That if you had to be president, your rank has to be lieutenant general and above, otherwise you cannot become a president. So again, in 1969 it was suspended, and then 72, they got their third constitution, which also has been tempered. So I don't think there is any idea or there are any fundamental tenets which Pakistan has. And in fact, even before the constitution, if you go to those declaration of objectives which happened in 1949, they are also so contradictory in nature. So what has happened, and over a period of time, that the only reason or rather the agenda of Pakistan, rise on the three of Pakistan, is basically it is against India. They thrive when Islam khatre mein hota hai. Otherwise they're always basically fighting amongst each other.
Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to place their points here? Alok bhai?
Yeah, basically, you know what, you need to look at Pakistan as an ideological state wherein their primary ideology is Islam. So, you know, their leadership has always played on the sentiments, religious sentiments as an instrument for, you know, keeping the country together. In the process, what has happened is that the divide, the sectarian divide and all, uh, you know, after when you play with these religious sentiments, the inherent contradictions within all those religious communities that come to the fore, and that is what is happening in Pakistan increasingly now. It is again becoming evident in the form of, you know, rising Barelvi and Deobandi Islam, all that. So that is one problem. And then the second thing is that, as Anurag bhai said, that the constitution, the problem of constitution in Pakistan is something which is which is there from right from the inception. But the other thing which is there, which we need to point out, is the way, you know, Islamiyat was introduced by Ayub Khan uh, as a compulsory part of education, you know. So what happens is that then, because of that particular thing, the India has been seen as from Hindu Muslim divide angle. You know, they for them it is more about, India is more largely Hindu. Fact of the matter is that today, even after 70 years of independence, our population of Muslims is more than that in Pakistan. We have around 20 crores, they have got 18 crores. It is another matter that they didn't have any census in last 20 years. So those are the issues, you know. It's and then when General Jia came in, what he did was he just expanded on whatever Ayub Khan did with education, and now the modern generation is paying price of that. I mean, for them, for Pakistanis, it's all, just look at their TV anchors. They openly call, you know, Indians as cow piss drinkers or whatever. So all that issue is there, you know. And this is continuing now. And now it has started to eat Pakistan from within. So, and that's what we are going to discuss today.
Okay, Vikrant bhai?
Yeah, it's a kind of ironic that Pakistan, which took birth because of religion, and today religion is one of the largest fault line existing in their society. Started by Ayub Khan, as other people mentioned, and then fueled by Ziaul Haq and Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. These took they actually fueled the entire Pakistani society and the state of Pakistan into religious fanaticism, and fueled the extremist element within the society, which is affecting India as well as Pakistan within. So it's a kind of ironic that the largest fault line is religious, which because of which Pakistan took birth.
If I can add very quickly, you know, I think the most dangerous man, and you know, the person who's basically, you know, whom you can say that, you know, he's primarily responsible for all the mess. I would say it is Maulana Maududi and his ideology, and you know, the kind of vision that he created. And of course, General Jia amplified it, and you know, he took it forward. And if you see, you know, he was the founder of Jamaat Islami, and everywhere, right from Kashmir to Bangladesh to everywhere, you know, if you hear the name Jamaat Islami, you know, that is the root cause of all trouble, all jihadists, all terrorism. And you know, uh, the father of all those, or the grandfather of all those, is Maulana Maududi.
Right. Vicky?
Yeah, I have a little different take on this. I mean, because I feel that, Pakistan, if you look at it, the way the ISI functions, it's basically, Islam is basically a reason. Okay, that's one thing. If I would quote, the whole Indian Mujahideen investigation that has happened, the breakup, happened because Yasin Bhatkal basically thought that Pakistan was not Islam enough. So there is one line. So they the whole thing is this, this fixation with India. There are a lot of Western countries which have given them this basic idea that they are as powerful as India, and they continue to believe it. If you look at their textbooks, etc., those kind of things. So Islam continues to be, a binding factor out there, but that is really not the push from Pakistan, when they're dealing with India, basically. So that's one thing. The whole agenda remains, Kashmir and things like that. Let's have all the communal riots within India. Let's portray India in bad light and stuff like that. But if you see the, Indian Mujahideen has been the biggest, probably the biggest homegrown outfit which India has had. And the whole thing, what happened is, the ISI, giving him up, and, he thinking that they are not, propagating, jihad as per, what is written in the Quran and stuff like that. So the thing is, it becomes kind of an excuse for them, to keep using Islam and keep belting out the whole thing there. Because, they're not letting the growth of the ISIS also happen there within Pakistan. So ISIS is also using that as an excuse, saying, Pakistan is not Islam enough. So the whole point out there, which I would like to make is that Islam is an excuse. That's one thing there. They have tried, binding these people together on the basis of religion and stuff like that. But if you see all the fights that are happening, the breakup of the Taliban, becoming the Tehrik-e-Taliban and stuff like that. So these groups basically are fighting within the system there or against the system there because they feel that it's not Islamic enough. So the whole point is just to prove a point against India and then carry out a lot of, propaganda material against India and keep India burning all the time. So that's my view on that.
Yeah, that's one. And, the other point is that Pakistan has been practicing a policy of use and throw right from its inception. For example, a country which was, they call Jinnah as the father of nation, and not many people in India know that Jinnah died on the road. He didn't get any medical help.
Exactly.
The other thing is his sister who was with Jinnah till the last moment.
Yes.
She also died mysteriously. So when they couldn't treat their somebody who's father of nation and Madre Millat.
Yes.
They couldn't treat her properly. Then how can you expect them to treat anyone else?
Exactly. That's true.
That's
because
the
other story that I also heard was that Jinnah on his deathbed basically said, I have sold the country to the mullahs. This is not what I want, basically.
Yeah.
So that's what the point was basically.
In fact, just one point wherein I think somebody was saying that I read, I don't know where I came to know of this, that when somebody used to go and they used to visit Jinnah in Ziyarat, he used to tell them that I know why you coming here, because you just want to know when this Buddha is going to die. This. So the Jinnah knew about this, and in fact, when this Fatima Jinnah wrote that biography,
yes,
it remained banned till 1986, I believe.
That's right. That's
that
right.
One thing
was lifted.
Alok bhai, I would like to add to Vicky. See, the binding factor of religion, this was once we have seen in past in 1971 when it was discredited and Pakistan tried to East Bangladesh on the religious line, but it wasn't prosperous, it wasn't a success. Even today, if you see Northwest Frontier as well as the Kapata region, the binding factor of a religion is not happening, it's not there. So there remains a bigger fault line within even in the religion here.
No, that's because they've been practicing
the
the use and throw.
I would like to make a very quick comment on, or rather extension on, Vicky's comment about, Pakistan is not Islamic enough. And I think, that is a very interesting point.
I think, Anurag bhai.
Piyush bhai, just give me 30 seconds on that. I think, Pakistan, even in India, primarily they were Barelvi. But like when the jihad in Afghanistan started, the Devbandis, they started getting funding. And, that is also a very interesting, conflict, because in last few years, you know, both Devbandis, which have a very, you know, like very similar to Wahhabis in you know, Saudi Arabia, and there's also this Wal al Hadith, which is basically followed by this guy Said. So
Hafiz,
you know,
yeah.
there is a, you know, conflict in you know, that Sunni Islam itself,
Yes,
and I think, you
correct.
know, that is going to play a very big role. What is happening now in Pakistan is also about that. You know, that Devbandis, Barelvis, and all others. You know, like who is more Islamic than the others?
That's correct. That's
Now,
correct.
you know,
And then
taking off from where Alok Bhai made a particular point about respecting their leaders. So, interestingly, even Liaquat Ali was shot.
Yeah.
yeah,
I know why.
but
By a
Bhutto
Pakhtun.
was
Uh, but
Bhutto was hanged. Yeah.
and
Bhutto was
Yahya
hanged.
Khan
I mean,
was incarcerated, and finally he just died in you know, the house arrest.
Madre Millat was found dead.
So now a very interesting point which I would like to, I think, place for everybody's perusal is that firstly there was, I think, a political failure in Pakistan between 47 and 1957-58 when Ayub Khan took over as the first what do you say, the martial law dictator, you know, in Pakistan. It's not that they had any stability to their process. They had, I think, about 4 governor generals, where first one being Muhammad Ali Jinnah, and the last one being Iskandar Mirza. This is all within 10 years of establishment of Pakistan. Iskandar Mirza was incidentally a descendant of Mir Jafar. Then Iskandar Mirza becomes the president. However, what we find very interesting is that in this 10-year period, they also had about 8 prime ministers. Now, look at India. Right up to 1964 till Jawaharlal Nehru passed away, you know, we had one single prime minister, and irrespective of the political leanings, the point over here is that that gave a very important stabilizing factor when the two nations were trying to stand on their 2 feet. So that is one point where I find that, you know, there was a political fault line which was created. The leadership is not mature enough in Pakistan, and we see lots of effects of it in the period following that. We also find, therefore, as the martial law was you know, announced in Pakistan, that there was a democratic failure. So not only did we have, you know, 8 prime ministers coming in and 4 governor generals followed by the first president getting deposed, we find that, you know, I mean, the charge is taken over by the military there. So again, it affected the leadership quality of the overall Pakistan. Then we find, you know, the linguistic fault lines, where we say that between Punjabis and the Bengalis, or between Punjabis and the Sindhis, between Punjabis and the Pashtos, we find that, you know, there were lots of gaps which were developing, and the politics in Pakistan was largely dominated by the Punjabis, right? So even though there was hardly any democracy which remained, we also find that, you know, the linguistic factors did have their important role, and it finally culminated into fall of Bangladesh, because that was the East Pakistan. We also find the cultural fault line here. The cultural fault line was basically, we find that, you know, you have the Balochi culture on one side, you have the Sindhi culture on the other side, you have the Pashto Pathan culture, you know, which is in the FATA and the NWFP. You find the Balti and the you know, the Gilgits Shias culture, you know, which is on the other side, and then somewhere in between, you know, you have the Punjabis having their own culture, and lastly you have the Muhajirs, you know, all these fellows who came out, and our famous guy, you know, who we keep talking about quite often. And therefore, we find that because there was a leadership crisis, we end up seeing that there is a lack of people-to-people integration, which because India is also, we also have to look at it from that point of view, that India is also a nation of, many distinctive identities, but there is a process of integration which India went through. We find that, that particular integration factor did not take place because democratically Pakistan could not really develop. So these are the points I'm leaving you with, and I would like, the panel to kind of take it up for discussion. Is there anybody who would like to kind of,
Yeah,
discuss
is
this?
on that, Piyush bhai, I would like to add something which you mentioned, that the influence of military. I mean, this is something which has been there since independence itself, and in that regard, I think the role which their military has been playing in Pakistan since ever since they got their independence is constantly overshadowing other pillars of the state, which is legislature, executive, and the judiciary. Now, and for that, I think you'll have to look at what Mr. Hussain Haqqani said. I mean, he quoted this in his book, wherein he said that although Pakistan, the total revenue which they received was around 17%, and the land which they got was was also very less as compared to India. But then they also, their share of army was around 40% of navy, the 30% of combined army, air force was around 20%. So a major chunk of Indian army, which was around at that point in time, I think it was around 400,000. Of that, 140,000 went to Pakistan. And then on top of that, the other thing was that time, I think at the time of independence, Indian civil service had around 1,400 officers, of which only 80 went to Pakistan. So there was a void. And apart from that, the political void which you just talked about, I mean, apart from Jinnah, they had only one name, which was like Liaquat Ali Khan, or maybe Mujibur, this guy. Mujib was also not that big that time. But then those were the only two names, and Jinnah was the dominant figure. So the political void was there. But in as against that, in India, you had figures like Nehru, Patel, and Kripalani, and even on the opposition side, you had Mukherjee and SP Mukherjee and all. So that thing was always there. And then this thing and then right after independence, this 48 attack took place, wherein they sent those invaders, those Kabilis, and all. I mean, the basic the reason, or the uh, I mean, motivation behind that was that they are soldiers of Islam. They are fighting for Islam, and that was the reason. That was the reason why they were sent to Kashmir. So they have used this thing. One, they've received a disproportionate share of army, and the other thing was that they've used religion the liberally as far as army was concerned, and this thing is now reflecting in the way army controls the discourse in that country. So that's one, and then maybe on other fault lines,
Yeah.
maybe
So
Vicky.
I would like to come in here. Talking about the Punjabi influence. You look at the first, say, 40 years of Pakistan's existence from 1947 to 1987. Out of which till 58 it was in flux. We all know that. From 58 till 71, and from then 77 to 87, it was under military rule. So right from Yaqub to Yahya Khan
Ayub
to
too. Yeah.
Ayub.
I'm so sorry, Ayub Khan to Yahya Khan to General Zia. These were the military dictators who basically had actually set up the system in the infrastructure of governance, or whatever you may want to call it. These were Punjabi generals, because the army obviously was predominantly Punjabi, and they have kind of created that, and that is their legacy, that like there is a Punjabi dominance. And of course there are other reasons we can get into, like northwest frontier, obviously, and Balochistan, they hardly had any say or cloud. Bangladeshis or East Pakistan had, but after the 1970 election, obviously there was that fault line actually, caused an eruption and they basically moved away.
Okay.
Okay, one more point here. I would like to add Anurag.
Yes, you.
This,
Please be louder. Yeah.
okay, is it clear now?
Yeah.
Okay, so when you were talking about the cultural fault line, and we see that a lot of fault lines are interdependent and they support each other and they allow each other to flourish and sustain. And one of the things is the political fault line, where the Punjabi influence is very much in there. Almost everything, including this, army and judiciary and political structures. And that is one of the reason why the cultural integration never happened, because they never allowed any other region people except Baring Bhutto came from Sindh. We didn't have any major bigger politician coming into the system and sustaining for a very long time.
Vicky?
And
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. We're done there.
Yeah.
no, I was saying just one more point, which is there, that what they, as against India, what they tried to do. I mean, they tried to impose a different language, which was Urdu, and imposition of Urdu is something which which is which we must look at, because they saw Urdu as one of the unifying factors, and I don't think so that it worked. It worked to their advantage,
Okay.
because every linguistic every religion, every region in Pakistan has their linguistic identity, and then I think that's one
Okay.
issue which was there.
Vicky?
Yeah,
Any?
yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's true. What he says is that about this linguistic identity. Trying to use Urdu as a unifying factor. It's really not worked. But of course, I mean, they thought it would work very well in Kashmir, but it's really not worked, because there is a great. I mean, there are a large number of people in Kashmir who wouldn't want to be part of them. That's one thing. But what I also see is that, well, it's not worked in Kashmir. It's worked in a lot of places. Where I'm sitting here in Bangalore. I can tell you that there are certain people who connect with that linguistic connect. That's a kind of thing. Or you look at UP or Bihar. In certain states. Like there's that very famous line. Khata idhar ka, gata udhar ka. That kind of thing. Which happens. So it has worked in certain places, but it's really not worked to the extent that they would have loved it, basically.
विकी, उसके पीछे रीजन है ना, गंगा जमनी तहजीब का जो बोला जाता है ना, तो गंगा जमुना तो यही रह गई, उर्दू बाहर चली गई।
Exactly.
तो कोई ना कोई
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That is true. That is true.
Okay. I think we've spent about half an hour, here on issue number 1. Reason is there are no questions also from the audience at this hour. So we could spend that additional time that we had, on part 1. It's time for us to actually move to the part 2. Largely, would I be wrong in saying that the group says that Pakistan, because of all these fault lines since its inception, in its seed itself, okay, is a failed state?
Yeah, of course, yes. I would.
Is there anybody who disagrees with this
Definitely.
point?
Yeah, definitely. See, when a state resorts to terrorism, then it's definitely a failed state. So you've tried unifying, people on the basis of Islam. You tried unifying people on the basis of Urdu, and then you have failed, clearly. And that's when you unleash your terrorists inside there. Okay, and then on one hand you unleash your terrorists, your what we call as the foreign militants, and that doesn't work. And then you bring in a lot of aspects, and then you create a homegrown jihad kind of scenario. You've done that with Simi, you've done that with Indian Mujahideen. And to a certain extent it has worked for them. I mean, definitely, political leanings aside, but it's really worked very well when the UPA was in power. That's one thing, because it saw the peak of the whole thing. And then, of course, if I would have to talk about a 26/11 Mumbai attack also, I mean, I would say it's definitely not possible, unless you have that, kind of local support out there. There are a lot of people that, who feel from the heart that, Pakistan should be doing such things in India and things like that. So definitely, when you resort to terrorism, I mean, it's not like India can't resort to it, say in Balochistan or POK and stuff like that, but we don't tend to do that. That's one thing, because we're not a failed state. And when you are a failed state, I mean, this is the last resort you take. And even now, for that matter, if you look at every intercept that is picked up by the IB or the RNAW and stuff like that, what happens is the whole focus is you go there. See, the army is not able to do much out there.
Yes.
Basically, they can control the scenario in Pakistan, but definitely not do damage to India and stuff like that. So you basically create these proxies. They sneak in, like rats, here and there, and then they create a lot of destruction. So this has become a policy for Pakistan, basically. So to unleash terror on India, and then keep making that point in a very small way here and there. So I mean, definitely it is a failed state.
Okay.
Death by thousand
Right.
cuts, as this.
Yeah.
I actually, it's very interesting because, if you talk about statecraft, it's all, you say that it's always about give and take, right? Now, what does Pakistan has to give? So there were only two gives. One was its location, which basically was tom-tommed right from Muhammad Ali Jinnah to everyone. USA bought that idea, during that whole Afghan invasion by USSR, and they got a lot of money. Now only China is buying, that locational advantage right
Yes,
now.
that's
The
it.
other thing which they have is terrorism.
Yeah.
So they cannot negotiate anything. The only thing which they can do is spread terror. Very pertinent example and recent example is Afghanistan. Let's start from Heart of Asia. Heart of Asia conference, obviously, unki bahut thu hui thi, right? When Ghani declined their offer, what happened in Pakistan immediately after that? The DG or Director General of ISI was replaced. Now there's this new guy, Lieutenant General Mukhtar, who becomes the DG ISI. Now he has published a paper when he was a brigadier in National Defense College in US on a scenario in Afghanistan. If Afghanistan basically goes with India or forces which are not favorable to Pakistan, and what should be done, and he basically recommends that we should aid the terrorists and go after Afghanistan through them. And that is exactly what is happening now. Day before there were 3 attacks. The deputy governor of Kandahar was killed. There was attack near the parliament, and this guy is implementing his thesis there. So that's all they can do, right? They can do a 26/11. They can basically go bomb Kandahar. They can go bomb Afghanistan. They don't have any other option. That's the kind of failed state they are.
Right.
No, but then
I think the
But
point
then,
here is that if Pakistan is a failed state, so like any other failure, a failed person, would really behave. Generally, what happens is we start grappling, with our own concept, with ourselves as a person or as a nation, with the nation's identity or reason, to be one itself. Now, having been disintegrated once with respect to Bangladesh, moving away from them, it is quite obvious that as a failed state with such heavy results, with disintegration, Pakistan leadership, whatever it may have been, whether it is the democratic leadership or military leadership, and even more difficult when it's a military leadership because it does not really understand the public.
Yeah.
So it struggles with the idea of how to keep the people together. And they have to, every nation has to, every organization has to have one objective for which, everybody else is working together. So even a nation requires something that will bring everyone together.
Yeah.
So here, what kind of challenges do we think Pakistan faces as a failed state? There are 3 larger, categorizations I am leaving for the panelists. One is what kind of diversionary objectives the leadership in Pakistan is setting in the national narrative, because they do not have much positive to speak about.
Yeah.
So what I would like to understand is what kind of diversionary tactics or objectives is being put into the Pakistan narrative. Number one. Number two, what kind of results are we seeing with respect to their economy? Okay. Number three, what kind of geographical, further geographical disintegration or disturbances, as we keep seeing in the news, as we keep seeing, those gruesome photographs that we keep seeing on Twitter, various activists, who keep on talking about matters pertaining to Pakistan. So these are the 3 primary categories. So in category number one, can we discuss the false agendas, the objectives, the diversionary objectives, that what kind of diversionary objectives are being set into the narrative in Pakistan?
Right. In fact, I would say, the biggest diversionary objective which Pakistan has set in recent time is, what they call as NAP, their National Action Plan, which they brought about right after the massacre which happened in that army public school, right? But, I think it goes before that. This is a diversion which Pakistan is trying to create, that it is not a perpetrator of, terrorism, but it is a victim of terrorism. And they are trying to basically fight the terrorists, and they are, bombing their own country, in Fata and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa,
Pakhtunwala, yeah.
and uh, and in Sindh and so on in Balochistan.
Right.
But that is completely false. They are going after all the insurgency movement which basically exists. People who are not satisfied with being part of Pakistan, or government of Pakistan, but they are completely closing their eyes on the transnational terrorist organizations like Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed, or certain factions of Taliban and other organizations. So
So
that is the biggest diversionary tactics. They have created military codes. They are selectively targeting ethnic groups, and hanging them indiscriminately, while simultaneously closing eyes on other organizations which basically are celebrating a bodyguard who murdered Salman Taseer. They have created a mazar for that guy. Anybody who says anything against that now becomes a kafir. uh, Around
but that's
9
why.
social media activists in last few days have been abducted in Pakistan. 5 of them are very prominent voices against these guys. And the way
No,
they have been
Anurag bhai,
abducted, it's not like a work of terrorist organization. Most probably it is ISI behind it. So I think
Definitely. I
that
mean,
is the biggest one.
also,
So
if you look at it in the sense, they have created this good terrorist, bad terrorist kind of concept out there. So that's one thing, So that's where the whole problem begins. If you're going to treat Hafiz Saeed as a good terrorist and, Tehreek-e-Taliban as a bad terrorist, half your battle is lost out there. That's number one
no,
point. Sorry,
yeah.
someone was saying something. Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
you're
Alok
saying
bhai.
something.
Yes.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, so that's not exactly the way you fight the problem. And then you say, this terrorism basically, it's all become about, I've shown the muscle against India, so we know we write all kind of rubbish in our textbooks. You say, we won the 48 war, and those kind of things. So that fixation with India is so much. So when we went ahead and carried out the surgical strike, they come and they carry out an attack in Nagrota at that time. So that's how they think they're going to keep the people united, but in the long run, it's definitely not going to work.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing is, what there's one problem within Pakistan, which is like the way they have used, and this is again because of the position which army enjoys in that country. Their army doesn't have any experience in counterinsurgency.
Correct.
And that the way they employed army during 1971, that led to the breakup of the Pakistan. I mean, that's one. The other thing is, and this has been continuing ever since. They did that during uprisings in Balochistan in 60s, then 70s, and then 80s, and now same thing is happening since this murder of Abdul Bukti. So that's one.
Yes.
Akbar Bhutto.
Yeah, Akbar Bukti. Sorry. So that's one. The other problem is that Pakistan has been they have actually they have not they have taken, when it comes to, for example, when it comes to an area like Northwest Frontier Province, what they are doing is they're just employing what Britishers did. All the whatever policies Britishers employed during all those Anglo-Afghan wars and all, and post Anglo-Afghan wars, all they're continuing with that, and those are the, and when that is one. And then the way they have this after 9/11, when they went after all these after America went after all these Talibans in Afghanistan, these people came back to Frontier Province and KP and Balochistan, and that's when, in order to be on the side of Americans, they started, bombing their own people in Fata, and so that is also something which has created a big fault line in Pakistan now.
That's true, because
I
when the
think
Americans got in there, basically, the one very bad thing that the Americans did was they actually made Pakistan believe that they were as powerful as India. I mean, that's exactly the way they behave. I
Yeah.
mean, that is the major fault line, that they actually believe the Americans. That's a problem.
It's a con to believe, right?
Yeah, of course, yes, of course.
Yeah, and then look at the name of their operations. Operation Zalzala, Operation Sherdil,
Yes,
Rahay Nizat,
we have
Rahay
movies.
Rast.
We have movies by these names.
These,
yeah, we did,
yeah,
Jalbe Aj,
something like
Jalbe
that.
Aj.
Rahay Haq. I mean, this is something which is, which shows the mindset in Pakistan.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one.
Yeah,
And then also all those tanzeems, they've not been able to see when you make this distinction between good terrorists and bad terrorists, and all those terrorists are taking inspiration from same tanzeems. Eventually, those are going to strike back, and that's what has happened in case of Fata. I mean,
yeah,
what this TNSM or all these other tanzeems, they are basically, they are part of, they are all homegrown
yes, that's true. That's
organizations.
true.
It's not that they have come from somewhere outside. I mean, all those, that's one. And then this thing is, this thing is reflecting in Pakistan, and that's the biggest fault line, which I think, and we will discuss this in the second part, because this is something which we must use. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
we must leverage yeah.
I mean, take for instance, day before that Babur missile launch. It is such a fake video. Basically, there is a missile in grey which goes and then it turns orange after some time. That's a whole. That's a fixation which I call. It's all about spooking India. We'll keep spooking them. That kind of thing. And Piyush sir,
Yeah,
saying
but
when you just pointed out, saying that they use all these names. I mean, we use all these names in movies, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Weirdest name I've
yeah.
heard is "Paap ko jala kar raak kar dunga." That you remember that movie, right? Yeah. Sorry.
The other diversionary tactics which they're using is CPEC is also a diversionary tactic.
That's correct. Correct.
It's nothing more than that, actually.
Exactly. Yeah.
Even if you are able to create, if you create that road from Chinese province to Gwadar, then also it won't serve any purpose, because historically cost of transportation via sea route is always,
Yes.
I mean, cheaper.
Correct.
At the end of the day, you can't continue to use those traditional those
Yes.
transportation routes. That's one.
The-
And the other thing is that CPC is basically a debt trap. I think the money which is coming in, that $46 billion which they are showcasing as huge Chinese investment, bulk of that money is coming in as a loan. It's they have to pay it back. And the other thing which I think as of yesterday only, Sindh government, they refused to part with the security costs of or rather cost for providing security to CPEC. So all these things are there.
Chinese workers.
Sorry.
You mean to say the Chinese workers, the CPEC workers? Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, because there's some provision wherein they have to raise some force, and even within Pakistan, even within Punjab, I think till about last 2 or 3 months ago, they had not issued budgets for the raising of that force, and now Sindh has also refused to part with it. They don't have money, and then exports are falling. I mean, it's like these are testing time for this country, and they don't want to look beyond that. I mean, so CPC is nothing more than a diversionary tactic, as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely.
On
Okay.
CPEC, there are a couple of things I would like to ask the panel to basically discuss. One is the original cost was about $46 billion. The project has kept on expanding, drastically for a long time now. Do you think it will really complete itself in $46 billion, or will it actually, as some people say, cross about $100 billion? Number one. Number two, uh, what does it really speaking in real terms mean for Pakistan and Pakistanis? There will be a motorable way that will be there from Kashgar right up to Gwadar and a couple of other locations. But will it? Does it mean that, I mean, is in a corresponding manner Pakistan spending on creating skilled labor? Okay, is it creating a bunch of people in its country who are going to be in a position to exploit the benefits accruing from having, for example, in India we had golden quadrilateral. Okay, so that actually gave a huge fillip to the economic activity across India. So similarly, if they're going to have this kind of a corridor, are they going to the benefits which are going to come potentially? Is Pakistan in real position or preparing really, itself to get all those low hanging fruits, which will come from it?
Answer is no. That's, I mean,
Yeah.
that's because Chinese, they are known to, send their laborers, their engineers, with along with that money. What comes in is their laborers who are basically prisoners. That's the strategy they have employed in Africa, and so it's not going to work. I mean, this is not going to benefit Pakistan in
One bit,
any
yeah.
manner. Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, Pakistan is, if at all the CPEC project gets completed, which I highly doubt it will, Pakistan is going to basically get three things. First, if it at all gets completed, they're only going to get the road parts. Nothing else, is going to benefit them. I'll talk about the power projects.
Uh, no,
Second
no, no,
thing
no.
is,
Yeah, power projects also, yes.
yeah, second thing, what they're going to get is, humongous debt, which probably they will not be able to repay. And, what is happening in Sri Lanka will happen again in Pakistan, but maybe at a larger scale. Pakistan which will become a client state. And the third thing which will happen as a consequence of that, there will be very large Chinese settlements that will happen. And there are certain reports, and you will see them in Balochistan if Pakistan exists in its current form. Probably by next 30, 40 years, Balochistan will have a Chinese majority. Now, coming to power, Pakistan, the CPEC is the last straw which they have from an economic perspective. Can you believe, Pakistan has power plants today which actually use high speed diesel to, generate power? They have major power deficit. They don't have, transmission lines. And as part of, CPEC, what they are basically the power projects they have, they're all basically based on legacy technology. They're not going to have any fuel to run those power plants. They are talking about buying gas from Qatar, but the price at which they are going to get their power distribution companies already have huge circular debt that is going to increase. Second thing, this will obviously impact the any chance of industrialization. Second thing we have to look at is what is Pakistan's major export today. More than two-thirds of Pakistan's export is cotton related. And cotton yield in Pakistan is going down significantly. They have a water crisis, and probably if we start utilizing, the Indus water like as much as we should, the crisis will only aggravate, and their exports, which are already falling, will fall further. Their remittances are falling. They obviously have no chance of basically creating any skilled force unless basically they start imparting skills in those madrasas instead of teaching them how to fire AK-47s. So there's hardly anything they can do. So CPEC is a big propaganda to hold on, to clinch onto this idea of Pakistan till they can, and hopefully China will not be as nasty to them as it has been to other countries. But I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah,
Vikrant, Hari,
that's
you've been quiet for a long time.
Yeah, one thing which I would like to add to here, CPEC brings further fault line, increase the fault line which is existing in the Pakistani structures. Chinese will, of course, the depth thing which Anurag Bhai talked about, they're not going to transfer the skills. They will definitely send Chinese to work on these projects. That is another problem which they will face. And then apart from that, they will also increase the problem in the local community, like with the Balochistan, which they talked about, and the northwest frontier. They want Pakistan in return of CPEC. They definitely want Pakistan to work on nuclear militants, and that is going to increase further divide between the local communities, northwest frontier.
I think Vikrant, you have to be a little louder because your voice is dropping continuously. Yeah.
Okay, so the Chinese bring along with themselves. They are also bringing a lot of issues for Pakistan, and that is what's going to add to the misery of Pakistanis.
See, on
Mhm.
this whole issue, if I would, like to just add, in the sense, it's not like Pakistan doesn't realize what is going to be the problem of, associating with China in the long run, because they are these glorified land grabbers at the end of the day. So, that's the
True.
whole thing. But the problem is, it's still, again, as I said earlier, it's that so much of India fixation that they've got. The thing is, if you say we are with China now, so the issue is, they calling each other the all-weather friend and all that kind of stuff. The thing is, everyone in Pakistan does realize, what the long-term implications of entering into any kind of alliance with them, and of course, in one of my articles, I've in fact gone on to call Maulana Masood Azhar as a bouncer for China, basically, who protects their interests. So that's one thing. But the whole thing is, the whole India fixation that they've got, and at the moment things are working for them. There is a block on banning Maulana Masood Azhar, and China does block out a discussion in the UN about how Hafiz Saeed is accessing funds, basically, despite having a ban and things. So they're thinking very short term at the moment. They're thinking very, very short term. Down the line, 10, 20 years down the line, they will realize, what kind of a nasty impact China does have on Pakistan. So at the moment, the
See,
generals who are sitting there, who are okaying all these projects, and they're just thinking, okay, fine, China is with us, so we can keep spooking India. So,
so
Pakistan thinks just that much.
So, Vicky bhai,
Right.
you don't I mean, you are hopeful of Pakistan continuing for, in its present state for around next 20-25 years, is it?
10 years, sir, max 10, 10, 15 years. Okay, fine.
No, the other issue is like, to put it crudely, actually
Yes, sir.
Pakistan is a state which is, which will go to the highest bidder.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
it's a state which will go to the highest bidder. Now, America is not interested in, they don't consider them as
Correct.
important in their scheme of things. So now they have
That's
gone
true.
to the next bid highest bidder, which is
Yes,
China.
yes.
So
China. Correct.
later on, some other option will come in, and
Yes.
so they will go to them. That's one. The other thing is, I think amidst all that, the this particular thing is now going to the situation which is going to go bad would I think as of now it will be in KP and the NWFP regions, because that's where
Yes.
the real action is going to take place. It won't be in
Correct.
Balochistan, because
Uh,
Balochistan is an issue wherein Iran is a party, and unless
correct.
and until Baluchis on the Pakistani side they drop their demand for the Baloch regions on the Iranian side, it won't become a reality. That's for sure.
That is true.
So
That is true.
and do on the so only action which is going to take place will be on the either sides of Durand line,
Correct.
and there the I think that's where the disintegration of this particular acronym state is going to start again.
Correct. Correct. That's true. That is true.
One more thing here. Speaking about the larger economic issues because of the failed state, Pakistan, and they are dependent mostly in the from the donations which they receive from Saudis or Chinese, or at some level from Americans. And along with these donations, there are certain demands from these countries. Like Saudis, they want Pakistan to fight for them in Bahrain, Yemen, or Syria, wherever they are fighting, and that is further bringing another divide in Pakistan, because basically these are Sunni and Shia fights, and they are aggravating the Shia population locally. And in past as well, if you remember, 1988, Saudi sent a lot of Saudi actually funded the tribal people which went inside the Gilgit-Baltistan area, and they did a lot of big massacre. There was a Gilgit massacre thing where they killed a lot of people in the uprising which happened, and
Yes,
later
correct.
he actually died because of that. A lot of people were killed. Similarly, if you see Northwest Frontier, if you think about Northwest Frontier, we are found sanctuary in that area. Chinese, in return of their investment, on those people.
Vikrant, you'll have
And
to come near. Vikrant, pass out thoda sa.
Right. Another, of course, the Durand line has always been under contention, but one other fault line, the ethnic, linguistic fault line, which I see, which unfortunately, for whatever reason, does not get that kind of limelight or discussion, is basically Sindhu Desh. You know, if you look at all the events that happen in Sindh and especially in Karachi, and if you follow Pakistani media, a lot of times you would hear, so many robbers were, shot down, and so many robbers have been arrested. Now, who are those robbers? Those robbers are basically muhajirs, and you know, and I think there is also a misconception, at least between some of us here in India, that muhajirs are actually leading the Sindhu Desh movement. It is actually diametrically opposite. What these guys are doing, muhajirs, when they settle down, they have always been that notorious element, and like running, like what Dawood etc. did here in Bombay. The muhajir elements were like that. So the Sindhu Desh concept actually is against that Urdu speaking populace which engages in crime, which basically is always uh, kind of after them. So that I think is important, because 4 years back there was a march which was done by one of, like, there are these two groups for Sindhu Desh. One is that non-violent, and another one is
GSN.
violent. Yeah, GSN, the Muttahid is basically the one which basically is into
Yeah.
guerrilla warfare, and there's the other one. So they actually got quite a few people to join. I think it was 2.5, 4 lakhs. Considering Pakistan and the kind of military influence it has, still they could get so many people to on street, and I think it's basically a very quiet movement under the radar, and it can erupt any time. It primarily also because there are a lot of expatriate Sindhis who are or can fund this, and they need not be Muslims. So that is one thing which basically I don't know, but I think there is a significant chance of that fault line also erupting.
And there is one more thing which we have not discussed, and this is something which is religious, or rather radicalization of Pakistani army on religious lines. I mean, this is something which has not been discussed much. But I think in 1995 there was some coup attempt which was led by some officer of Pakistani army, and when they tried to kill some, there was a plot to kill some senior leadership of Pakistani army. So that thing is now going. I mean, that is something which is going to reflect, which is going to become a reality somewhere down the line, because see, radicalization, it also works amongst uniformed people. I mean, it is not something which, for example, I think their air force is highly radicalized.
Yeah.
Their navy is also.
Quite
I
right.
mean, yeah. Then the attack which took place at that Karachi attack was. They said that it was a handiwork of some radical forces
Yes, that's
within
correct. Yeah.
yeah. So that's something which is going to become a reality. You don't know when, but then I'm sure that it is going to happen, and it is and there's.
What do you guys think about the Gilgit-Baltistan issue? Because there again, I think we find a couple of people standing up and saying that their region is only being what we find in the economic agenda, and that is further alienating the people in Pakistan is uh, the economic programs are all largely aimed at benefiting the Punjabis and to a certain extent, I would say even Sindhis. Uh, and in that sense, I believe in Gilgit-Baltistan we find a certain amount of protest happening with respect to CPEC, because CPEC is only supposed to pass through Gilgit-Baltistan region, and it
Yes.
does not really have any other development project which is expected to come in that area. There is no education plan. There is no employment plan. So the livelihood is really speaking, not changing, and there are cultural pressures to top it all. So just the way we have discussed, various areas where we think that some kind of disturbance is either brewing and will shape up in a couple of years, like we said about Balochistan, or brewing and will pick up, very, very soon, like we are talking about FATA NWFP, or we are talking about even Sindhu, along with Mahajis, for that. So what do you think about Gilgit-Baltistan?
One thing I would like to add here for Alok bhai, killing of Osama bin Laden, that further aggravated the hardliner in the Pakistan military, if you remember.
Military, yeah.
So that is further
Yes.
dividing the military structure over the religious line. Topmost military leaders, they try to portray they are very secular and very modern in approach, but the recruitment ground is basically the same where they hire militants. So they're like the Brethren is militant, and their brother is in the army. So that's going to affect somewhere down the line. That's going to affect Pakistani military.
Yeah, and just to answer Piyush Bhai's question on Baltistan, I think you know what, Bhai, on Gilgit Baltistan, I am not that much hopeful because I'll tell you why. Uh, the way the Chinese are blocking Masood Azhar resolution, that shows that once they decide on something which is like some like backing a terrorist, known terrorist, or so if they can back him openly, then how do you even imagine the Chinese ignoring any issues in Gilgit Baltistan, because that's the area wherein
They've invested.
which is the axis actually. If Gilgit Baltistan goes, then CPEC also goes for a toss.
Absolutely.
There's no way they can contest to Pakistan.
One reason why there is so much of a discrepancy in the growth and investment in Gilgit-Baltistan is because of the Shia domination there. So if you remember, basically Sunni thing and Shia domination in Gilgit-Baltistan is one of the reason where Pakistani military or government was never interested in its development.
Okay. So we've run out of time now. We'll, I think, just do a little summing up, of the entire discussion we had today. So we had round one today, where we discussed the issues with respect to Pakistan since its inception, where we believe that right from its seed, all kinds of problems have, persisted, and that is what has made Pakistan a very defective and a failed state. We've discussed how it's politically deficient, how it is democratically deficient, how it is deficient in terms of leadership, how it is having problems with respect to linguistics and cultures. Uh, we have discussed quite heavily the issue with respect to religion, and we've also discussed people-to-people integration issues that are there in part one. In part two, we discussed the challenges that any failed state faces, and because of that, the kind of activities that it engages in. So within that, we have discussed that Islam is not really the real issue, even though, because what we also find is that even though Pakistan was created on the basis of religion, it has actually been a very dissatisfactory reason for them to create it is not really the unifying factor, because there are God knows how many tafsirs, and between those tafsirs, there are lots of fights. So it is not really acted as a unifying factor. However, we find every time the military comes in, the military leadership is short of ideas on how to integrate people, and Islam as a bogey, keeps on coming up. That is one issue that we have discussed. We've also discussed that terrorism, and including that with Kashmir, basically in short, India. India is also one of the bogeys that a failed state like Pakistan has no option but to raise, to create some common reason, some common cause around which a state can be built. We've also discussed the economic factor here, that it is a failing state with respect to economics. It's got very weak foundation as far as economics is concerned, and we find that in the recent times they have raised the bogey of the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and the China-Pakistan economic corridor does not really have anything working backwards and linking it to education and employment in Pakistan across all the various regions that a CPEC is supposed to pass through, from Kashgar right up to Gwadar. We have also discussed the issues pertaining to geographical disintegration, which we think various kinds of forces with various levels of pressure are existing in Pakistan, and these include nearly all primary regions of Pakistan as we know today. So we are talking about Balochistan, we are talking about Sindh and Muhajirs, we are talking about Gilgit-Baltistan, we are talking about FATA and NWFP, and we are talking about Punjab itself. So this is largely what we have discussed in today's session. We have not had any Q&A session. I believe the kind of timing that we have put, maybe coincides with people's dinner timing or something like that. But we have two primary issues that we have to discuss on the next date. So therefore, we'll have session number 3, which is what kind of overall effect that all of this is having on Pakistan itself, right? We're also going to discuss what kind of effect all of it is having on India. So we have two primary parts remaining now, which we'll be discussing. Is there any date that any of you would like to discuss this on? Can we do it tomorrow, or can we do it in the next week?
Can we do it next week?
Next week?
Yeah. Monday, guys.
Monday types.
Yeah.
Okay. Anurag bhai?
Yeah, next week is okay, I think.
Okay, so next week, Monday from Vikrant bhai. Anurag bhai? Alok bhai?
I think Alok bhai dropped,
Okay.
but I think it would work for him as well.
And you're fine?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay. So with that, I believe we had a couple of viewers on our YouTube live broadcast today. We would like to thank them for having joined us. It's quite interesting that you didn't have too many questions, but we would like you to kind of raise a couple of questions next time we are here. If there are any specific issues you would like us to address in this specific debate, we will be very happy to take it up in the next session. Thank you so much for joining us. Good night.
Good night, Piyush.